It is 23 minutes after 11 p.m. Central African time. If you have just joined us, it is time for our next conversation, and we are looking at the developments of relationshiping. Now, modern romance looks very different from what it did a generation ago. Technology, changing gender roles, and shifting societal expectations have reshaped how people connect and what they want from relationships. Now, the idea is to understand what ship you're in. Is it one for the long haul? Is it a boat that will take you around the bend? Is it a log that we are trying to balance our weight on as we tide through the seas of love? That's the question this evening. And helping us navigate from situationships to relationships is none other than, of course, a friend to the station, Juliane Hoss, a relationship coach and therapist. Juliane, welcome to African Diaries again.
Hi, good to be here. And super interesting topic that you chose for the session today.
Julian, there's a lot happening.
Yeah.
When I was reading the brief that Nola had given me, I mean, I had questions from here to Cairo. I'm thinking, first of all, how do you set the context for what it is you want in a relationship? Because sometimes you and your partner are not on the same ship. They are on the
Usually,
Titanic, you are on a little boat. You know?
most partners are not on the same ship. And it's so fascinating because, especially when it comes to sexuality and sexual preferences, and it starts with how often the two partners want to have sex, we're usually not on the same ship. Wouldn't it be such a surprise or coincidence if both partners have exactly the same expectation or preferences? But what is fascinating is that A, it's hardly ever discussed. B, we somehow assume there's something wrong if we don't want the same thing, that it's nearly a bad fit situation. And C, we also think if our partner really loves us, they should read us or they should understand what we want. And that's where massive, massive, massive misunderstandings arise. And they grow over time to the point that a lot of couples find themselves in a situation that partners are actually worried, anxious, or even scared to initiate intimacy.
Very interesting, Julian, because I do think that culture plays quite the great context. So perhaps let's touch base on that. We don't just get into relationship. We have a precedent that was set before we could even be cognizant of what was happening around us. They are presets that we have that happen between 0 and 6 of, well, that age group, if you will. And these then inform how we pursue relationship, what we think relationship looks like. Take us through the psychological end of that reality. Because sometimes I feel like we say things, but we don't know the depth of what it is we're saying.
Okay, so you mean what we learn as kind of like the scripts for a relationship in society?
Yes, and how we have
Yeah.
presets that model what it is we want in relationship by virtue of those first 6 years of existence and what happens after.
All right. So generally, what's important to say is that actually the romantic relationship as a partnership or as a lifelong partnership is a super recent invention. I guess maybe in the last 50, 60 years. Before that, a relationship was more a contractual agreement that had, through that, very clearly defined roles that helped in the setup of a family, economic setup, the safety, kind of like the building a nest and building a legacy. Like, I mean, often families were also just united identifying to kids or young adults that should get married to bring two families together. So that was the setup, and it was always a contractual agreement, and it was always very clear who had to do what, clear gender roles, and the focus was on economic security, on accumulating whatever is required for the family, on protection, and of course, on offspring. And that has changed a lot, especially it has changed with people having more control about their reproduction. So with the pill, the anti-baby pill, that was a big, big step, but also generally with changing economic situations or gender roles, we have now basically invented romantic relationships as the core setup of our society. And I love the book. It's called Love Between Equals by Polly Young Eisen. What is it? Polly Young Eisenhardt. And she basically says that we've invented romantic relationships as the foundation of marriage, but none of us actually has a recipe what that means for lifelong relationships. So we go into it with this infatuation idea of our partner will meet all of our needs, which are these rose tainted classes, which we do experience maybe for a few months and years. But afterwards, we're all a little bit clueless how to go about those romantic relationships. So, what you're referring to, yes, we are shaped by the cultural context, but we also misled at the moment by that because we think that romance will just continue this whole idea of happily ever after. Of course, won't work that way. And on top of that, what I think you're also alluding to is that we then also are shaped by what we experience in our homes, what we see as relationships, what our parents have role modeled to us, which of course can be helpful or very harmful.
Julianne, what's interesting that you're making mention of is the reality that a marriage wasn't necessarily for the purpose of love, but for legacy,
Never.
for growth, for development. Do you think we're supposed
Mm.
to go back to that setting? Maybe that's the problem here,
No,
Julianne.
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think so. I think it's a beautiful vision to build lifelong romantic or loving relationships. And what is actually very encouraging, if you look at the evolution of psychological research, is that in the beginning, when we had romantic relationships, psychology would also say, oh, you have this spike in emotions and the butterflies, and then it kind of like weighs off, and then you have to look at the roles and at compromises and who does what in the house. And that was kind of like the first generation of couples counselors as well. But as research has evolved, and especially as we learn more about attachment and connection and how we tune into each other, we can actually see in psychological research that love can be there for a lifetime. Yes, not always in the same way. Yes, every romantic long term relationship has phases of friendships that we kind of need to accept. But what we can see in research is that that spark can keep on coming back. And to me, that is fascinating and also a fascinating ideal or vision to work towards. And I mean, when the roles were clear and people knew what to do, surely also they had more identities that were more based on their roles, less on personal fulfillment or excitement and joy. So if we would go back to the traditional setup, we also would have to go back to an identity that is solely just based on what is our role, what is our understanding in our family, in our society, and then we have to be content with that.
The voice there of Juliane Hoss, who joins us this evening. She is a relationship coach and a therapist, and we are looking at the evolution of relationshiping, how we have moved away from what once was the pursuit of legacy, the pursuit of the growth of a family, the coming together of royalty, to what is now could be a fling, could be a situationship, could be a lifelong relationship, could be marriage, could be cohabiting. It's quite the context, if you ask me. If you have your questions, send them through to +27634069126. Julie Ann, I want to talk about maybe a merger. I like solutions. So I want us to merge the old and the new. Yes? Because I love the reality that you put out there. You said that there is a possibility for love and love lifelong, and there are different phases of a relationship. But can I propose that perhaps as Kulufelo Sibanyoni had suggested, and this is somebody on TikTok, that maybe us coming together and tying the knot or agreeing to cohabit or agreeing to exist together needs a purpose. A purpose bigger than, oh, you are cute today and I'm not. And you know what? Tomorrow I'll be cute. Something bigger than that. Something bigger than the squishy feelings that come from relationships. She emphasized that there are a lot of couples who are coming together today to build, right, to financially secure each other and, of course, their offspring, but also to there's a purpose. There's a purpose behind this relationship, and it proves to be stronger than when your feelings wear out. Do you think that that's possible for pursuit?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely having a shared purpose, and also what always gives me a lot of hope working with couples is when there's a shared value system or a shared worldview, and also just a solid friendship, just really getting along well. I think those are really, really important building blocks for lifelong relationships. And also, I think what is important when we speak about the purpose is also the question of how will that exactly look like. I'm always so impressed slash shocked when you ask couples around the life they want to create. They have a lot of answers about the boxes they want to tick, things they want to achieve, things they want to have or get, and very few answers around how do you want to feel in that life? What will your experience be? How will the day to day look like? And I think we can have more conversations around that. And that ties in beautifully to what purpose are we having? And essentially, at the end of the day, a partnership is always about the third you're creating. Yeah, there's you, your partner, and the third, the room for growth, what you're building together, the relationship. We look at it nearly like a separate entity, or yeah, a separate. Sometimes in counseling, we speak about it like a third person in the room.
Mm, that's really interesting. How do we give definition to this third person? Because it almost feels too abstract for me to comprehend at this stage.
So it would really be, what do we want to build, what do we want to nurture, how do we want it to look like, and how do we want to feel living with this third person, like that is the relationship. And I really go into asking as specific, if someone would, do a documentary or have a Netflix show about you, how would they see that you're happy, how would they see that you're good, that you're building a relationship that you really want to have, thinking through how will day to day look like, and not just in what type of house will you live and how many kids will you have and what will you have achieved. That is incredibly important.
Julian, I think sometimes we stretch the importance of this in it for the long haul idea. You know, we have to come together to last for almost forever, if not beyond forever. Sometimes people just want to be in situationships, you know, they just want company for now. Is that a bad thing?
So generally, as a counselor, I'm not really in the business of good and bad. We're not really in the business of right and wrong.
Yeah.
If any, we're in the business of healthy and unhealthy. And there is no answer whether a situationship or even ethical non-monogamy is right or wrong or good or bad. It always depends on A, what's your intention with it, and B, what's the impact for you and your partner. So I'd have to understand what are two people trying to find through and with this situationship, and how does it impact their well-being, and then we can take a guess, is it more healthy or is it more harmful at this point in time. But generally, I think we are very obsessed with lifelong relationships, but to me that's also a reflection. I don't think it's always just what the society imposes on you. I think we are also obsessed with it because it somehow speaks to a deeper need to be safe, to have our place, our person, to somehow feel like there is the spot that we belong. And I mean, the primary, the first and last tension we feel as humans, that kind of guy, like it walks with us through our whole life, is the tension between autonomy and belonging. And that is also the tension that plays out in the relationship concepts we have in our modern day society, is the need for belonging. We still obsessed with our person, that one person, that good fit where we everything to them and they're everything to us, and it's a lifelong setup, and we secure and safe. And at the same time, we're also obsessed with the new, with our independence, with not having to be too responsible or tied up, and being autonomous and experiencing new things and feeling free. And that's where also, infidelity, affairs can come in, or setups of relationships that allow for other people or that allow for ethical non-monogamy.
Julianne, what's really interesting is how you talk about the human mind. And for the lack of a better word, let's stick to psyche, right? The obsession with belonging, the obsession with the new. The word obsessed gets me a little scared. Is it healthy that we have this very deep desire for this one person who I don't think necessarily can fit all the shoes we want them to fit in, but we want them to do that? Are we, is that a healthy state of existence?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And you know what's actually most fascinating is that even in psychological research, the leading leading researchers, they don't really agree. Some they would say, yes, find your person really attached and build this bond. And they say it's like the primary need we have, which is more in line with attachment theory. And then other researchers, they would say, no, that is exactly harmful. This idea that there's one person that can give you everything, and you need to actually be safe and sound and secure in yourself, and then find someone that you can enjoy a partnership with. So that is really hard to answer. But I think I think a little bit of an idea how to solve it is to say, have a good relationship with yourself and find people that you can have healthy relationships with. But you have to find out what that really means for you. There is no one size fits all approach.
Julianne, I do want to touch base on the ethical non-monogamous relationships, but just before we get into that, I want to know, are there any studies that speak to how the brain is impacted when you are in a particular kind of relationship? So this one human fits all my needs relationship versus this various humans that could potentially fit all my needs. Have we seen how this impacts the psyche and how you view yourself in actual fact?
So the studies speak more to attachment, how secure you feel with your partner and how secure your bond is. And there are a lot of studies that actually show that if you have a secure bond, your nervous system calms down with your partner in the room. So there's fascinating research, for example, where women were taken into a lab and then they are informed by the researcher that they will now undergo an experiment which can potentially be hurtful, and a lot of research participants are in pain during this experiment, which is basically what is told to create or to put them in a state of anxiety or fear. And then what is being tested is if their partner comes into the room, what is the change in their brain activity? And what you can see is in relationships where the partners are securely attached, there is an immediate change in the brain waves that speak to a kind of soothing and calming effect. And but if the relationship is not secure, and there's interesting questionnaires we also use to assess that, then the stress is heightened. So that doesn't mean that this person has to be your one fit and do everything for you and be perfect for you. It actually just means that you've built that attachment or that relationship together and you are secure through what you have been building as a partnership. We have a lot of research on that. On the other hand, we also have a lot of research and a lot of books that also tell us there is no perfect fit. You are expected not to fit to the person that you fall in love with, because we are often also drawn to someone who represents precisely the facts that we either don't like about ourselves or the facts that we we're not really strong at. So oftentimes, we look for someone who complements us. And what attracts us in the beginning, maybe someone who's super adventurous and all over the place and outgoing, is exhausting after a while. So that also means that the clashes you have in a relationship are not a sign that you are a bad fit or there's a problem. It's more that these clashes and conflicts have to happen, because that's when you reach deeper levels of intimacy or connection. So please, if anyone tells you, I'm not sure if we are a good fit, send them back and say, rather find out what you're trying to create together. And if that is what works for you, which brings us back to the purpose. Because otherwise, everyone will at some point say, we're not a good fit, let's break up.
Sure. The voice there of Juliane Hoss, who joins us this evening. She is a relationship coach and a therapist. We are looking at the evolution of romance and relationships. And if you want to send through your questions, we have just under 6 minutes to attend to this conversation. So please do find us on WhatsApp +27 6340692126. Juliane, something that has affected how we connect with one another is technology.
Yeah,
I was
definitely.
talking to a lady much older than myself, and she said something so powerful. Before there was such an obstacle that a man had to experience when getting his message to me. It was him writing the letter, then finding ways to get it to me, then finding ways to receive my response,
Yeah.
and so it was quite the tide to keep communication flowing, and that built an interest, that built purpose to action. It's I want to be with you is the purpose, and so this action that I'm applying is almost like an investment, and so when I'm with you, it's in a return on investment to an extent. However, in 2025, I don't need to write a letter. I simply text you. It's a quick
It's a
fix.
simple hi.
Yes, it's a simple hi, which is the most strange text I could ever send. But yes, a simple hi will do. How does this affected how we connect with one another?
It's crazy. It's because we assume that through technology we're actually connected, but we're actually not. It doesn't give us the same sense of connection that we feel when we really have a person close to us. So we really need to come back to connections in real life. But also, like, there were beautiful analysis that I looked up where they were trying to understand how was love back in the day of the letter and how is love in the days of Tinder. And it has changed massively. We often have more of a shopping or retail approach to a relationship, the bucket list, everything we want in a partner, everything they need to fulfill, all the boxes that they need to tick. But we also have a surplus of opportunities. So it becomes really hard to choose. And interestingly, as people, we're not even that good to decide from that many options. We're often much happier if we have fewer options and we really spend time thinking through the different options, getting to know a few people and then see who's our person. Because that's when we really think about, can I see myself with this person? Versus when you're just swiping or you're just saying hi or you have a few words and then you decide if you take it further or not. Actually, you can't really take a good decision. So it has become really, really problematic. And the phone also, I'm telling you, especially in the therapy room, the phone is just such a big, big, big topic. I sometimes feel I need to get a chair, 2 chairs, where I can put the partner's phone on. What happens through the phone, it's nearly, it has become a signifier of privacy, signifier of infidelity, a signifier of trust, a signifier of how we communicate. We really are drawn to these phones to find out, are we safe or not? What is our partner doing? Where are we at? Am I the priority or the phone? And usually we would end up feeling we are not the priority because we're also drawn to our phones. So it has also done a lot to trust, the trust in a relationship. It has done a lot to the connection. It has massively changed how much time we even spend with our partner or we even spend talking.
Julianne, as a parting shot for somebody who's saying, I want to step into a relationship. I am ready, Julianne. It is me, myself, and I, exposing ourselves to the world. What wise words of counsel would you give them in order to prep their mind that what they're looking for might not necessarily be what they find, but also learning to respect your desires in a relationship and not necessarily trample on the next person's desires because you don't want what they want?
Yeah, because I was actually joking with a friend today that so many of us have our beautiful futures mapped out. We have our weddings in our mind. Everything is ready. We just need to find that one person that fits in like a piece in the puzzle. And that doesn't do justice to the other person. How many of your friends, when you ask them about relationships, what they're looking for, they actually give you a long list of things they want out of it. And I always ask myself, where is your future partner in your understanding of a partnership? Is there anything in it for that person? So we need to actually come back to the we. Research shows that really happy couples focus more on the we rather than the I or the you. And what I would recommend, if that person, like you described just now, is ready, take a piece of paper and write down, what type of relationship am I trying to create? Not what partner do I want to find? Not what I want to get out or what is in it for me. Not what I expect or want to achieve, but what do I want to create day by day by day. And that will be a beautiful starting point for a relationship.
Juliane, it's on that note that we are going to end this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us this
Thank
evening.
you.
This has been very fruitful. The voice there of Juliane Hoss, and she is a relationship coach and therapist. And she was just walking us through the evolutions
Thank
of
you for having
relationships.
me.
Absolutely. Julianne's still with us on this side. Listen, it is 11 minutes before the show comes to an end, and I'm actually in disbelief. How did time fly so quickly? It is also time for us to pay some bills.